Hillary Hart, welcome to the Legacy Lounge, where family, finance, community, and arts are meant to be sustainable. And so we welcome you today to talk about you, your vision, and the excitement in Houston in the arts.
Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. You're coming up close to your 10-year anniversary. 2027 in January will be 10 years with TUTS, and it's got a special and unique definition and impact on the community. Can you talk a little bit about the history of TUTS?
Absolutely. So we were founded in 1968 by a gentleman named Frank Young. He saw a hole in the fabric of our community culturally. There was, at the time, not really a musical theater presence in the city of Houston. BAA, Broadway Across America, which is a for-profit commercial venture that does touring Broadway that I think a lot of people are familiar with, did not exist in the way that it exists today. And so Frank looked around and he said, I want to fix this. And so he cobbled together artists from all over the city of Houston, including the opera, the ballet, the symphony. And we started with a singular performance in 1968 out at Miller Outdoor Theater called Bells Are Ringing. And hence Theater Under the Stars, where we got our name.
Under the Stars at the park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
beautiful,
where we got our name.
Beautiful. So the Houston theater stage has been divided a little bit through the years between drama and musicals. And TUTS has always led with musicals. And you've done other things, and I'm sure you plan to do other things. But without TUTS, there would be no musicals, no music. So I just wanted to share that with our audience and wondered if you could talk a little bit about that and also your vision for the future.
I think certainly in the early days, there was, again, Frank Young looked around and there wasn't a musical theater presence and there wasn't an opportunity for young people like he was growing up in Houston to learn how to train, to learn how to become part of that musical theater ecosystem. And so he set out 57, almost 58 years ago to rectify that here for the city of Houston. Now, of course, we've got other entities that are for-profit commercial entities like Broadway Across America that come through, and sometimes there will be presentations at some of the other larger theaters in downtown. But predominantly, you're right, musical theater was kind of born. It's why our tagline is Houston's home for musical theater, is that our art form that we focus on was born in Houston with TUTS so many years ago. So.
And we do have a rich ecosystem in theater throughout the community.
We do.
You guys led and, carrying on that tradition of the music, the dance, just the big shows have been extraordinary from inception to present. I think a lot of people think that Broadway Across America and TUTS are kind of synonymous, that, both of you share the same mission or vision. Can you speak to that for our audience?
Sure. So I think it's not surprising that there is some, what I'll just classify as brand confusion. Theater Under the Stars is a not-for-profit regional theater producer. We are a community service organization, and Broadway Across America is a for-profit commercial venture. So they are headquartered out of New York. They tour musical theater productions all over the country, whereas we are firmly rooted in and for and by Houstonians. So while we do have a mix of programming that we bring through in any given year, it is intended to be in service to our community, as opposed to a for-profit business model is to make money.
Right. Theirs is about ticket sales and how much profit they can bring in, but with a large theater, over 2,000 seats.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. It's not easy to bring in audiences for that. And I think that through the years, and maybe even after the long, tall shadow of COVID, people have just merged the two in their minds.
I think that's true. Not for nothing, certainly we're starting out fundamentally as very different business models, but I also think, we don't have a the ability to properly brand ourselves as an institution at the Hobby Center. We are the primary resident tenant, which means we pay rent to be there. The building, we do not own it, we do not operate it. We have a presence there, but what I would say is that the only time that anybody knows that we're there is when we're in residence on the main stage and we're able to put our name in the building. But once our shows close, the minute that curtain comes down, we are required to remove all of our any kind of branding, labels, monikers, signage. We have to pull all of it down and take it with us, just as if we were a tour that came in and then left town. So we don't have a lot of brand presence. So it's not surprising to me that there is confusion about, who Theater Under the Stars is, who Broadway Across America is. Certainly where people might understand that the Hobby Center is its own separate entity as a venue, they don't necessarily understand that the show that they're coming to see is a TUTS show, or that a show that they're coming to see is a Broadway touring show as opposed to homegrown or locally produced.
Well, and in terms of financial stability, if you're a touring company and all you have to do is sell tickets and then you leave, you're paying for the space, of course, when you're using it, but you're paying substantial rent, north of $3 million a year as a community organization.
Correct.
That is not built for profit.
Correct.
You're built to program for the city and for arts education.
Correct. That is correct, yes.
Okay. So part of the vision of the future is really honing in on that brand identity, right? And so tell us about your vision for getting that brand to kind of be back where it was when everything originated in musicals in Houston.
Happy to. It's actually quite exciting. And I would say that, COVID, you referenced COVID, which someday I hope we never have to use that word ever again. But I think what I would say about that is that COVID actually gave us the opportunity to really sit back and do an assessment of what our value proposition is to the city of Houston. And as a community service organization, as one that is currently in direct competition with a for-profit commercial venture, we started looking at, similarly to the way Frank Young did, where's the hole? Where's the hole in our art and culture ecosystem?
Right.
And so in doing that assessment, we started looking at what should our business model be moving forward? How can we best serve the city of Houston beyond just the main stage? And how can we also...
And not to interrupt, but
Yeah.
also to create that strong brand
Right.
that Theater Under the Stars is famous for.
Yeah.
So
No, you're absolutely right. And so to do that, we started looking at what would it look like if we were to actually leverage what has now become a watershed moment for our organization into something more meaningful and impactful to the city and to the arts and culture ecosystem here in the greater Houston region. And so what we, executive leadership, my cohort counterpart, our artistic director, Dan Connectus, and I did with board leadership is sit down and look at what has now turned into a 135,000 square foot facility that will be part of the Rice Ion District and the Innovation District. We started looking at the next evolution of what art and culture could be, specifically performing arts in our case in terms of producing, but then how could we build a facility that does not exist in Houston, that doesn't really exist in its current design anywhere in the country? How could we turn that into a true asset for the city of Houston? And I think, part of that is not only the type of programming that we're going to be bringing, which will be different and will differentiate ourselves from work that's happening through the Broadway series at the Hobby Center and other arts institutions across the city, but it's also about opening it up to the greater art and culture ecosystem here in Houston. So when I say that, I mean things like I've always, and I'll just back up a little bit and say I've always found it the hubris of arts leaders, including myself early in my career, of I don't understand why people don't know what we're doing. I don't understand why we aren't able to reach more people. And it's because we spend so much of our time in our venues with the lights out and the doors locked. this facility that we're talking about is going to be open to the public so that you don't need a ticket to walk in through the doors. You can actually just come in, and while you come into the building and experience the visual art, the digital art, the different informal gallery spaces that are designed as part of the building. If you want to come in and grab a cup of coffee and sit and use our Wi-Fi and work all day, that's what we love to have you. The idea that we want to break down this barrier or perception that the arts is something to be hidden or only something to be appreciated from a ticketed seat in the house is something that I think we're really very interested in.
It sounds a little bit like the churches that are dormant.
Yes.
6 days a week, and then the seventh day is all the action. But this will be thriving, and it'll be daily. There'll be daily opportunities to learn and grow and be part of the arts.
And not just through our programming, but through other organizations across the city of Houston.
And it's the innovation hub of the city. I mean, all of the eyes and excitement are turning toward there.
Yes. And I think for us, the idea of intentionally and conscientiously designing a building with STEM and technology in mind, so that we are, in fact, I'll say slightly modifying our mission, which is we're going to break down barriers to the arts, full stop. The idea that we will build a facility that is accessible to artists and arts organizations that don't have a home as well, to everything from visual art to digital art to other performing arts. The idea that we will help kind of fill that hole, which is a dearth in collaborative and creative space here in Houston.
If you could define, what it's going to look like. I mean, many groups are turning to more immersive theater experiences. What would be the hallmark of your vision?
Well, I think one, accessibility. Theater Under the Stars has a history of ensuring that our programming, irrespective of whether it's main stage programming or if it's our training programs that we do through the Humphrey School or through the River, we want to make sure that we are inclusive with a capital I. And that we are creating programming and a facility that is accessible. So for us, that means everything from, if language is a barrier, there will be technology that will allow you to sit in our audience and listen to a show in a different language in real time. If you have mobility challenges or you need some accommodation there. I mean, even to the extent that the building is designed where our catwalks are wheelchair accessible. So if we had a wheelchair-bound electrician, they could still work with us. It's this idea that when you talk about what does inclusion look like, and immersive to me, I think a lot of people think about it in terms of, VR and AR, and certainly that is part of our platform and that is part of the programming that we are looking to put into this building. But
when you refer to inclusion, you're really talking about inclusion of a diverse community.
That's right.
Okay.
In terms of, and again, capital I, right, in terms of maybe basic functional need or support that an individual might have, all the way to the type of programming that they enjoy engaging with. Yeah.
So let me back up for a minute and talk a little bit about the Guthrie. You spend quite a bit of time there. And can you talk to me about how that was funded? Because, I mean, the Guthrie was a community program.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about the funding that they received and
certainly? Well,
what's the same? What's different about Theater Under the Stars?
The Guthrie Theater is a regional theater. They produce predominantly plays. I would say in terms of the type of programming that they offer, they are very similar to the Alley Theater here in Houston in terms of they offer a variety of programming, but it's not heavily focused, say, the way TUTS is on musicals, right? The funding for the Guthrie was also not dissimilar from other arts organizations in that you have a mix of earned and contributed revenue that helps to support the organization. Most nonprofit regional theaters, including the Guthrie, operate on a 60-40 in terms of 60% contributions to 40% earned income.
And those contributions, just to be clear, can be corporate, they can be individual, but they're donors.
That's correct.
Over half of the funding comes from those donors.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and yes, corporate, individual, foundations,
family offices,
things of that nature, and government as well.
What slice of the pie is government support?
Here in Houston or at the Guthrie?
Well, on a national level.
It depends on which state you live in and which city
Sure.
you live in, and also what is the structure. I mean, by way of example, the Guthrie and the state of Minnesota, they get a not insignificant bit of funding from the state through a legacy fund that was established by the voting population of the state of Minnesota.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it was a imperceptible incremental tax that was added that then went into a fund, a statewide fund that was intended to fund green space and the arts. And so it was a 25-year term limit on that initial.
But the sustainability of
huge.
that type of funding provides
huge.
not just financial but psychological groceries for a community arts program and organization.
100%.
Okay, that's interesting.
I think what makes TUTS different is that our revenue model is 70-30 in favor of earned. So 70% of our income comes in through ticket sales, or in the case of a very, very small portion of that comes in through our education and our training programs. But the vast majority of our revenue, which is 70%, is ticket sales. And that is not sustainable in what we now understand Houston to be, which is a conflicted market. There are about 12 conflicted markets across the United States where Broadway Across America or another commercial touring entity.
That's what you call a conflicted market.
Yes.
Where basically you're both creating competition for each
right.
other. And whenever you put a nonprofit and a profitable firm, opportunity, I mean, they're just, it's not an even playing field.
It's not. Just very different access to resources, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Very different.
So if you are to sustain, which you will, no doubt, but it's a tall order.
It is.
And you have really been working on a visionary campaign. Can you tell us about that, both in terms of, monetary terms, what the building is going to cost, and, how, what are the best ideas to get there?
Sure. I think, there's a couple of things, right? Being in a conflicted market, understanding that we are responsible for continuing the organization's annual operations, it is imperative that we find ways to grow our donations and our contributed revenue. 30% support from contributions is not sustainable in the current market. And just when you're talking about regional nonprofit theaters to begin with, many of the theaters, especially post-COVID, continue, even what feels like an eon ago, continue to struggle. And so I think for us to be more resilient, I tend to shy away from sustainable because in my mind, sustainability indicates that you reach a certain plane of stasis and you stay there. But because we don't make widgets, because our product is finite inventory and it's variable in any given season, I look at it more as a little bit more like a roller coaster. And so what we really need is a resilient business model, one that allows us to experience dips in ticket sales or changes in philanthropic giving in any one of the sectors,
but
whether
foundations from either government or whether it's state or local, they are meaningful as an underpinning.
Well, they are. They are, especially when organizations start looking at national funding, right?
Right.
When you go to a corporation that may be headquartered in a different state, or you go to a foundation that may be headquartered in a different state because they do national funding, if you aren't able to demonstrate that your local government or that your local entities are fully supporting you, it makes your case for support that much harder.
Understandable.
It's like if your nearest and dearest aren't supporting you in a meaningful way, why should we? Becomes the question and part of the conversation. So certainly I would say that yes, all avenues of contributed revenue are important, but making sure that you have that diversified revenue stream. I think one of the places where theaters can get themselves in trouble or arts, nonprofits, I'll just say nonprofits can get themselves in trouble, is if they become too dependent on one area, or in the case of individuals, one individual over the body, right? Because what happens when that one thing goes away for whatever reason?
But we have had such a significant wealth effect in America with a sustainable stock market, even through ups and downs in the market and the new administration, the market just keeps plugging.
Yeah.
So, and family offices have grown 267% over the last few years.
It's incredible.
So keying into that is really important, isn't it?
It is. It
Right.
is. But
And the opportunities. I mean, I often say that, the estate tax, for example, is a voluntary tax because every dollar you give to charity is tax eliminated.
Yeah.
And so, there's so much that people can do and have their name attached to and associated. And what a great time for that is at this pivotal new branding.
Yeah.
But so that the music doesn't die, so that the musicals continue and flourish.
Well, so the community service doesn't go away.
The
Again,
community programming,
that's
the
right.
diversity.
That's right. And what TUTS does,
That's not going to come from a for-profit organization.
correct,
Ever.
certainly one that isn't even local. They're not even based locally, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is interesting. And to also then look at, not looking at it, I mean, I know we tend to, in our industry, talk about things in terms of donations and gifts, right? And I think the way I actually look at it is an investment. Art and culture contributed $1.3 billion last year to the Houston economy. It's an investment.
It's one of the fastest growing, levers that we have. And I don't think of it as just giving either. I mean, there's a great phrase that says the only wealth you have is that which you leave behind in a legacy.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to create a legacy for TUTS now has never been better.
It has never been better. There's a real opportunity as we look to evolve as an organization, as we look certainly to your point about redefining and elevating our brand and our value proposition to the city of Houston. As we look at what is this 135,000 square foot facility that is going to be open to our community and to our other artists and arts organizations, we look at, what is currently in its current design an $85 million project.
Okay.
But you look at it as the investment. I mean, there is data, rather, I should say, that definitely points to, and a history of data that points to investing in arts and culture entities into cultural districts, of which we would be a part of the Midtown Cultural District, that gives you a 15-to-1 return on your investment in terms of the economic and the urban development that happens in that area, that the surrounding businesses thrive because of the patronage or because of the activity that is driven entirely by the cultural center.
I'm not at all surprised. Every time you speak to a lawyer, a doctor, a wealth manager, anyone who's had experience and had an education in the arts will attribute that to much of the success that they enjoy.
100%.
I mean, public speaking is the number one fear, and people who get that experience as a child overcome it a lot more quickly.
100%. We have someone who's on our executive committee who actually started out as a Humphrey School student, and she's an attorney, a lead attorney, so completely different. She did not take up the mantle of arts performer or administrator, but she will 100% point to her time in our training program as being foundational to the success that she's seen.
Oh, yeah, it's the fabric that built her and so many other people that enjoy an education in the arts.
Yeah.
So, but it's a tall order, $85 million.
Correct.
And what's the plan now for who all can contribute to that? I mean, is it just going to be Theater Under the Stars that has that ticket, that has that $85 million ticket, or is it going to be shared by other arts organizations?
We are the primary driver.
Okay.
Yeah, we are the primary driver. Yeah, we have not asked and are not currently contemplating asking another arts organization to join us in the fundraising effort. We are very specifically, I go back to the phrase, but we are leveraging what is this watershed moment for us to benefit others.
Yet I am glad the River and some other organizations you mentioned are going to be engaged.
Yeah.
And they truly benefit from the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
So how can individuals help? What are the opportunities for them to become engaged in building this innovative experience?
reach out. I would love, I mean, I think we are very much in the phase of our planning and our execution on our strategy of educating as many people as possible about why. Why are we choosing to build this building and leave the Hobby Center? Why is this building important? I think it's important that we don't look at it as another performing arts center. It is a cultural innovation center. It's intentionally designed to be that. I think that
is there a naming opportunity on 100%. That building?
All throughout the building, as with I think a lot of what people are familiar with in terms of facilities and capital campaigns of this nature. Absolutely, there is opportunity to invest and to be an advocate on behalf of our organization now and for the future vision, and be an ambassador for us in the community as we start to gather more momentum behind us.
Okay, and how do you envision the stage, the number of seats, that sort of thing? And I know it's very early and premature, but
it's fun. Well, one of the things that we did was we went through a feasibility study when we started thinking about, again, what could we do that is different and needed here in the city of Houston. And what came back to us through that was the need for what I term as a mid-sized theater. So we have a lot of theaters that are 99 seats to 199 seats. We've got a handful of really large, as you alluded to earlier, that are 2,000 plus. This theater, the main stage inside this facility, is currently designed at 1,200.
Okay.
There is also a 300-seat flexible studio theater inside the building, so you can accommodate a smaller group. You can also do things that are different types of programming staging, whether it's in the round or I call it basketball court or arena configuration. And so I think having that flexibility, having two spaces that currently don't exist that are available to the art community are important.
There's so many people in Houston, actors, crew, cast members of every type that have gone on to Broadway or gone on to theaters throughout the country. Is there a calling for them? And do they come home? And are they any part of this?
Yes, they do come home, and we are fortunate many times to be able to welcome them back to our stages. Some of them that have actually come up through our program and go on to have careers. In terms of
when you guys started the Tommy Tune Awards, I do remember that it really did help send kids from Texas out throughout the nation at a different level than they had before.
That's absolutely
the education and the excitement surrounding that event were so great.
Well, and it was our way of providing and shining a light on art and culture, specifically musical theater, but in the greater Houston region. I think we spend a lot of times, and don't get me wrong, my son is an athlete, and so I go to football games and baseball games religiously, but I think, a lot of times we do forget about the importance of the art as part of a holistic education. And so the Tommy Tune Awards were created to help shine a light on that as being actually a competitive, and I don't know if you've ever seen a real serious musical theater, especially a dancing chorus member. Those are some athletes. I don't know.
They truly
I don't know how they do what they do. And so to be able to shine a light on that.
Those Olympic skaters are
my gosh,
unbelievable dancers. It's been an exciting Olympics.
It's incredible. So I think, to the extent that we have alumni that will be coming back to be part of our programming moving forward, 100%.
That'd be fun to see some of those people come back. I've seen those kids grow up and stay in Houston and go away. But that plus, Dan has brought such an incredible Broadway contingency.
100%.
And so the melding of those two could create a lot of excitement.
Well, and that's one thing I think TUTS does that no other training program does right now is we offer that peer-to-professional training opportunity, so that not only are you getting peer-to-peer as part of a technique-based training program, but you're also getting that peer-to-professional, so that when you, as a high school student, go to audition for a college, they're looking at your resume and they might see that you've worked with Marsha Milgram Dodge, or they might see that you've worked with a Tony Award-winning director or designer, or, to the extent that they leave, if they do decide to leave Houston or Texas to go to school, if they go into New York, they already have somebody's cell phone number. They've got a connective tissue that we helped to create early on that gives them a safety net when they move on to other markets.
Well said, well said. And I fully understand how that has worked so well.
Yeah. I think that said, one of the things that I think we would love also to see is meaningful partnership with institutions of higher learning here in Houston. Being able to provide an option for our local students to not feel compelled to leave the state to go get that kind of training, to be a conduit or a partner with an institution of higher learning, so that students that come up through the Tommy Tune Awards or through the Humphrey School or even through the River can actually stay here and train in Houston if they want to.
So many of the Texas schools have kind of limited arts more to film than they have drama, musicals across the board. But who are the best candidates to tie in with in terms of universities? Is UT coming? Are they to that point, or?
Well, I think they I think, they have a pretty robust program of their own in Austin. And that's not to preclude any kind of partnership moving forward. But I would say, when we start looking at the closest musical theater program major that exists is Texas State.
Yes.
And that's, 2.5, 3 hours away from here. And so if we could, partner with an institution like Rice or University of Houston or even Houston they're now Houston City College. Even Houston City College, I think that would be incredible, to be able to. Houston is what is now arguably the third largest market in the third largest city in the United States. It's kind of shocking to me. It's shocking to me that we do not have a local, regional institution of higher learning that has art at its focus in that way.
It is unusual.
Yeah.
And, for the arts, as we talked about, the shadow of COVID has not only made it hard for small businesses to reemerge, but it's been tough coming through. There just is some residue left for all of us to overcome. And I think the way you're approaching this new, exciting, and innovative venture is really going to perk up a lot of Houstonians. As we think about your career, because it's hard to become an executive director. These positions are hard to find, hard to come by. You've been in it almost 10 years now, the Guthrie before. If you were your younger self trying to give advice to a young woman, who wanted to grow in the arts and arts education and programming like you have, and if you could look at it two ways, what's the best advice you might have gotten or can give, and what's maybe some of the worst advice that you think people should ignore?
Wow, that's a big question. I've been fortunate to have a handful of people in my life that have been very supportive of the path that I've chosen. My husband and my son, not the least among them. I think one of the things that I would say some of the best advice that I could offer is making sure that your goals and your priorities are in alignment. It's one thing to say, I want to be an executive director or I want to be a CEO, irrespective of the industry. Yeah, or even the industry, right?
Yeah.
If you're saying that your goal is to be this thing, but your priority is to clock in at 10 and clock out at 3:30 and, have very rigid boundaries around your life, you probably aren't going to quite see the success that you hope to.
It may be a non-starter in the arts.
It is. Well, it is, because we don't make widgets, and our producing cycle is so variable, and the needs of any given production
and it's not a 9-to-5 job.
That's right. So, I just use that as kind of a simple example, but
lifestyle.
Making sure your goals and your priorities are in alignment so that you will feel fulfilled, because we do spend a lot of time together. We do spend a lot of time at the office. And as I mentioned, my husband and my son, there are plenty of games that I've missed. There are plenty of choir concerts and school activities that I have not been able to go to, but it's because my priority needed to be somewhere else that day.
And if you're doing that in something you don't love, the sacrifice can become too great.
Correct.
So the old saying, find something you love to do and you'll never work for the rest of your life. And there's clearly a lot of hard work in the arts as they are building new businesses and throughout. But I think the advice is, be true to your heart in terms of what's important, but also be flexible. If you really want something, you may have to bend those boundaries a little bit.
100%. Yeah.
Did anyone ever give you some advice that you thought, boy, I would be smart to ignore that?
I don't necessarily know advice. I will say that I have had people refer to certain opportunities or accomplishments as, well, that's going to be a big step up for you. And I think while there might be a little bit of truth in that, I would also argue that I earned the right to be there in the room to begin with. And so I think, the other kind of piece of advice
So
is,
don't let people intimidate
well,
you.
and don't undersell yourself. Don't assume that what they're saying is right just because, they have a lens through which they are looking at the conversation or the opportunity on your behalf. Only you know whether or not
Only you know. It's funny, just to share, a friend of mine gave me a card that I still to this day find one of the funniest and most interesting cards. It says, "Go ahead, underestimate me." And you open the card up and it says, "That'll be interesting."
Yeah.
And I have
That's right.
always found, because people can make you feel like the journey is too hard or the step is too big, and that's not positive.
Yeah, it's not. And it's just not productive. I don't find fear, generally speaking, to be a productive emotion. You know?
Right. It kind of breeds more scarcity than abundance, which can always be a problem.
Yeah.
Well, we're so excited for you to be here today.
Thank you.
We support you, and we hope that there's just going to be an outcry of support for what is absolutely critical for the arts fabric of Houston. So thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Hillary.
Yeah.